What's up, seniors? Just so you'll know if you're in the right place or not, this is Unit 4, Lesson 3 notes. Hope you've been taking good notes. You know what I always say, take good notes. A couple things I want to show you guys. We have students up here on the Senior College Wall of Fame. Look at you go, Taylor Brown. All them colleges accepted you. Not sure why any of them wanted you, Emily. Just kidding. Look, we got Allison up there and Faith. Faith has her sight on WVU and WVU only. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, you've seen Size up there. We have Maddie Boffman, got a couple of them in. Maddie Boffman got some college acceptance letters in after she got her lucky penny, her unique and valuable penny. And we got Indy and Taylor Christ, Covey. Shocky's been accepted to Bridge Valley, and so has Sophia. So as we go through the semester, guys, if you've been accepted to any college, university, or technical training school, let me know, and you too can be on our Senior College Wall of Fame on the trail to a better you. Now, also remember, seniors, we've been studying the executive branch, the office of the presidency. So I have the first 15 presidents up here for our first president's quiz, but I'm kind of waiting on the date for that because I'd rather wait until we're all back together 4 or 5 days a week before we take this quiz. But if you have not got a chance to write them down and look at them, you can pause this video and do so now. But these are the first 15. And you can copy these guys down in your notebook where you can kind of look through that list. And remember, when we take the quiz, which is still to be determined when, but it'll be 2 points for first name, 2 points for last name, spelling counts as a point, 60-point total quiz. I tell you what we'll do real quick. Let's do this real quick. Let's just go back here and look at them because the faces are back here. They're not going anywhere. All right. All right. Griffin Nickel, who's that one? George Washington. All right. Who's that one, Autumn Moore? John Adams. Thomas Jefferson. James Madison. A comes before O. That's James Monroe. Son of a monkey. Yep, that's the son of John Adams. This would be John Quincy Adams. Andrew Jackson. Old Hickory. Right here is Mutton Chops Martin Van Buren. Yeah, Emily Dempsey, I know you want to run your fingers through those sexy mutton chops of his. This is William Harrison. John Tyler. Fathered his last child when he was like in his 70s. This is James. They still wear mullets in Polk County, Florida. Polk. Zachary Taylor. Mallard the Duck. There's his duck feathers. Millard Fillmore. Franklin, that's a fierce comb over Pierce. And James Hannibal Lecter Buchanan. Hello, Clarice. So hopefully you can remember to study them a little bit as we go through the next couple weeks. I'm just hoping we'll all be back in school together 5 days a week, probably within the next couple weeks, and then we'll worry about when we're going to take that quiz. But you can study for it a little bit on your own. Get out your notebooks. The very last thing that you have in your notes from Unit 4 is this vocabulary word, the State of the Union Address. So that should keep you up to date. So today I want to tell you about a trench coat. I have it, a little story about the trench coat here so that you guys can relate it to one of our vocabulary words, I guess is what I'm trying to do. Several years back, I don't really remember how young I was, but I was probably in my 20s, maybe early 30s. But my uncle had his father-in-law pass away, and his father-in-law had a house in Beckley. And his father-in-law, or my uncle, by the way, when my uncle's father-in-law passed away, he was the executor of his estate. So he had to take care of all of the will. He had to take care of selling his father-in-law's house. But to make a long story even longer, he had to take care of selling the house and getting everything out of the house. So he had it sold. And he contacted all of us cousins and said, hey, look, I need your trucks, I need your trailer, I need your help. I've sold my father-in-law's house, and we have to get everything out of it by next weekend. So we loaded up our trucks and our trailers, and we were going to go help our uncle get everything out of his father-in-law's house. And his father-in-law's name, we called him Daddy Al. So Daddy Al had passed away, and his house needed to be taken care of, and we had to get everything out of there. So we go over to this house in Beckley, and there's about 4 or 5 trucks, 4 or 5 trailers, and my uncle says, all right, we got to get everything out of here by today, so, you two guys go work upstairs, and y'all clear out the upstairs rooms. We're going to work down here and clean all this out. So we kind of tried to use divide and conquer to help us, And my uncle told us, he said, if you see anything that you want, if you see anything that you like, you can keep it, because I don't know what I'm going to do with all this stuff. So if there's something you want, you can have it. So my cousin and I were upstairs cleaning out bedrooms, and we were cleaning out all of the clothes. There were some clothes in the closets and things. And one of the things I come across was a trench coat. It was one of those old Navy trench coats that used to belong to Daddy Al. And I thought it was cool. It actually kind of looked like this. Let me show you a picture. I have a picture of it here. I tried to remember to wear it today, but I actually forgot. But it's kind of an old Navy trench coat that looks something like this. And I thought it was pretty cool. So we're taking all these clothes downstairs, and we're loading them up in trailers and trucks. And I told my uncle, I said, hey, can I keep this trench coat? He said, it's yours, take it with you. So I threw it in my truck. And actually, with the busyness of the day, forgot about it. So I got home that day and just hung it up in the closet. It was summertime, so I didn't need a jacket then. And it sat there for 2 or 3 months. And this fall came in, it got cold, and it was one of those nasty fall days where it was about 45 degrees and raining. And I had to go to work at school, and I pulled out that Navy trench coat and said, man, this is going to be the perfect jacket to wear. And I put that jacket on, to protect me from the rain. And I went to work, and I got my keys out and opened my classroom door, and I came in and sat up at my desk, and I went to take my jacket off, and I said, well, I need to put my keys in this pocket. And I put my keys down in one of the inside pockets of that trench coat, and I felt something. And I pulled it out, a wad of money rolled up in a rubber band. And I looked at it and said, oh my goodness. I unrolled that rubber band and unrolled those Benjamin Franklins. And there was $2,000 in good old Benjamin Franklin dollar bills there. Wow. Have you ever put something in your hoodie pocket and then found it next fall? I've done that before. Have you ever left something in your pocket and forgot about it till later? Well, have you ever reached into a trench coat pocket that wasn't yours, that didn't used to belong to you, and then you pull out $2,000? Now, I know all of you are wondering exactly what I did. I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you the truth. And because I'm telling you the truth, I'm going to tell you that dark thoughts did cross my mind. I thought about what all I could use that $2,000 for. But to me, when it all came down to it, it was blood money. There was no way I could have kept that. I actually drove straight to my uncle's house after work that day and knocked on his door and gave him the money and said, hey, 3 months ago I kept that trench coat, and I just found this in the pocket of that trench coat. And I gave it to him because I knew that he was in charge of Daddy Al's estate and the will and the money and things like that. And yes, I pushed dark thoughts aside and I did the right thing. So the message for you seniors is this. Life is full of choices. Choices have consequences. Make right choices. I had to make the right choice that day, and I gave the money back. And my uncle told me, he shook his head and said, we found money in that house in the craziest places, stuffed in, heat vents, stuffed under mattresses, in jars in the pantry, in the attic, behind a box. Daddy Al had taken money and put it all over that house and hid it in different places. And one of the places he hid, a couple grand was in the pocket of that trench coat. But if you learned anything from your history in Coach Halsey's class last year, you'll know that people that lived through the depression and lost money, from the banks, they didn't trust banks. So they didn't put their money in the bank, and they kept their money hidden throughout their house. And that's just what Daddy Al did. And I had to do the right thing that day because of that money left in that pocket of that trench coat. Now, the reason I tell you this story is because one of our words here in this section of notes is a pocket veto. A pocket veto. And when we get to that word, I'm going to relate everything back to this trench coat story for you. Now, I want you to look in your notes. We're going to take some notes in this last section of Unit 4. But the last essential question we have is, what are the 15 executive departments? Sometimes it's called the fourth branch of government. Sometimes, because it's so big, it's called the bureaucracy. But remember, the president has 15 executive departments underneath him that he's in charge of. Each one of these executive departments has a chairman or a secretary, and they run that department. These departments are here and put in place for one reason. Our country is too big for one man to run the whole government. He can't do it. So the 15 executive departments are there to help the president carry out and enforce the laws that are made to help run this country. The 15 executive departments employ millions of people in America. Therefore, the bureaucracy term, sometimes they're called. Some of these you've heard of. Some of them you probably haven't. Some of them are obvious what they do, like the Department of Education. Duh. So we're going to put these in our notes right now. And I'll try not to talk about all of them too much, but we'll put these two in first. The Department of State is in charge of all foreign diplomacy. They're in charge of our diplomatic relations with other countries. The Secretary of State is in charge of this department, and they are in charge of all of our embassies and ambassadors and diplomats that are in foreign countries all over the world. When I was in high school, I thought the Department of State had something to do with our 50 states here in America. No one ever told me. I was very ignorant about that. I'm in college going, what's the Department of State do? Does it have something to do with, like, the states? But see, now you're not going to be ignorant like I was. The Department of State handles all of our foreign diplomacy and peacemaking with other countries. The Department of Justice, they investigate federal law violations. They investigate, they're responsible for federal law. They're our federal police department. One way to think of it is Ansted has a town police department. Fayette County has our deputy sheriff's police department. The state of West Virginia has the West Virginia State Troopers. And if you think of it that way, as we keep going up the ladder, the federal government has the Department of Justice. It's our federal police department. And they look into investigate violations of federal law. Next up, the Department of Treasury. I couldn't help myself on that definition. Duh, they handle the money. When you get your stimulus check in, which, by the way, none of y'all will get one. That's right. Well, your parents will get the stimulus check. You need to go ask your parents for your cut of the stimulus check. they probably won't give it to you. But hey, maybe you can ask. The check will have the Department of the U.S. Treasury written right on there because they're the one that handles all of the money. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is our HUD housing programs for low income, messed up my screen, for our low income people. They handle those things. It's a federal program, and they're an executive department under the executive branch. The Department of Labor sets our labor standards, helps our unions out, helps protect workers. The Department of Commerce regulates trade in our country, not only interstate trade, but international trade. The Department of Defense, hello McFly. It takes care of protecting our country with our military. Very important department there. The Department of the Interior. Now this is kind of cool. The Department of the Interior, I think, the interior is inside. So you think, well, the Department of the Interior takes care of our inside of our country? What? But I know that my sister has like a interior designing degree from Balder Fashion College in Atlanta. But what does an interior decorator, what does an interior designer do? They make the inside of your house pretty, right? Yeah. I mean, like we don't really have interior decorators and designers in West Virginia because what do we do here in West Virginia? Well, our idea of interior decorating is putting our 9-point buck up on the wall. Yeah, killed that one there last year. Or we got posters of our favorite NASCAR drivers up on the wall. Or our sports teams, yeah. We interior decorate, make a room the Mountaineer room or the Pittsburgh Steeler room. That's what we do here in West Virginia. But believe it or not, in other parts of the country, interior designers are people who work on making the inside of people's houses pretty and contemporary and nice. But now think of the Department of the Interior. It's in charge of our national parks. Our parks make our country pretty, don't they? So that's how you can make that little connection. The Department of the Interior helps make our country pretty. They're also in charge of water conservation programs, and they're also in charge of Indian reservations in our country. That's what the Department of the Interior does. Water conservation, they're in charge of Indian reservations, and they're also in charge of our national park system to help make our country pretty, like an interior designer makes your house pretty. The Department of Health and Human Resources, the DHHR, also oftentimes called the Department of Health and Human Services. This is our public health services that it provides for people. This department's definitely really come into the forefront a lot with the pandemic and our coronavirus, COVID-19. So they really had to step up their game, and their relevance has been really forefront during this time. The Department of Education is in charge of all of our federal school programs. The Department of Veterans Affairs takes care of our veterans and their families, takes care of disability benefits, health benefits for our veterans, and they rightfully deserve the best of care that they could possibly get, and they deserve it because they have fought for our country. Many of them have been injured or wounded for our country, and they deserve to have nothing but the best. The Department of Energy regulates our energy resources. I'm sure President Biden is going to put this department at the forefront as they try to continue to move towards cleaner energy and away from fossil fuel, but we'll just have to see what the next 4 years brings with that. The Department of Agriculture is really kind of cool because you would think it would be, agriculture is a big fancy word for what we like to say around here is farming. Yeah, we're farming. I mean, nobody says, well, we're agriculturalist. They go, farmers. but agriculture means farming, but it's a little more involved than that. The Department of Agriculture does help out our farmer programs. They're in charge of our food stamp programs and our EBT benefits for low-income people, but they're also right here. This is something that'll probably catch y'all's eye. They're in charge of the school lunch program in America. So some of y'all always complain about the school lunch. Well, really, you can blame it on the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Transportation promotes transportation safety and regulations for transportation. And of course, the 15th executive department was added after 9/11. It's the Department of Homeland Security. It protects the United States from terrorist attacks, and they have a big job to do with that. That includes cyber terrorism, cybersecurity, planes and everything with the TSA. The Department of Homeland Security has a big job to do today. So those are the 15 executive departments. I think on your test, all I'll do is just put them down and match them up with what they do. And I think you can do that pretty easy. And remember, all of these executive departments are designed to help the president carry out and enforce the laws and help run the country. We have like 4 or 5 vocabulary words. When you talk about the Department of Treasury, a term comes up called budget. I don't think we've had a balanced budget in our country for several years. But a budget is a plan for income and a plan for spending. If you have a balanced budget, that means you brought in the same amount of money as that you're spending. If your budget is in a deficit, then you're spending more money than you're bringing in. That's never good. I make so little money, I can't never have a deficit anyway because I don't have enough to spend anyway. But that's what a budget does. Our Department of Treasury and Congress has to work with a budget every year on what our government is spending money on. And part of that, of course, is income. And you should know already, how does the government have an income? That's right, taxes. That's everyone's favorite word, isn't it? Next up, the executive departments. What exactly are they? Well, we're just going to call them the 15 divisions of the executive branch. And you know that they're there to help the president run the country. Now, I told you before that each one of those 15 executive departments has a chairman or a secretary. And this is not someone who's answering phones or taking messages. The secretary is the head of this executive department. They're the ones in charge. For example, the Department of State, the person in charge of that is the Secretary of State. The person in charge of the Department of Defense is called the Secretary of Defense. It's a very important job. All of those secretaries are on the president's cabinet. So President Biden has been appointing people to these 15 executive department chairmen, secretaries, whatever you want to call them. And remember, Senate has to approve. The president has the power to appoint, but the Senate has that check in the Constitution. They have to approve all of those appointees. So Biden is getting his cabinet in place and getting them running. But each one of these executive departments have a secretary. There's a Secretary of Transportation. There's a Secretary of Veterans Affairs. There's a Secretary of the Treasury. There's a Secretary of State. I already mentioned that. There's a Secretary of Energy. So all of them have one. But this next term is called the Attorney General. The only one of those 15 executive departments that's not called a secretary is the Department of Justice. The person in charge of the Department of Justice is known as not a secretary, but the Attorney General of the United States of America. He is the top lawman or woman in America, and he is the head of the Department of Justice. The Attorney General. He's the only one of those executive department chairmen that doesn't hold the title of a secretary. We don't call him the Secretary of Justice. We call him the Attorney General. The Department of State has ambassadors under them, but ambassadors are high-ranking U.S. officials and diplomats in foreign countries. And an embassy, we've all heard of embassies, the U.S. Embassy in England, the U.S. Embassy in France, the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi. But an embassy is the official residence and residences and offices, I guess, should be plural, of ambassadors and diplomats in foreign countries. It's where they live and work Technically, it's a technical piece of United States soil in that country in all parts of the world. And the last vocabulary word, we have a few more. The Joint Chiefs of Staff. Anytime you hear the president talk about the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he's talking about the highest ranking military leaders in America who advise the president on military matters. They work directly with the Department of Defense and the Secretary of Defense and the President, who is Commander-in-Chief. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are very important. And I know if I was president, I would not want to make a single military decision until I consulted with my Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that's what our president, all of our presidents do. One of the powers a president has is the power of an executive order. An executive order is scary in a way because one man, the president, can give this written order and it carries the same weight as a law, but it's not approved or voted on by Congress. The only check to an executive order is the United States Supreme Court, who can declare an executive order as unconstitutional. So we do have a check in the government with that. But I read where Joe Biden's first few days in office, he signed more executive orders than Trump and President Obama. So I don't know if all that's true or not. It must be true. I read it on the internet. But he's written a lot of executive orders the past few days. And the last term takes us back to the old trench coat. Pocket veto. I want you to think about Daddy Al's trench coat that I used to have. Daddy Al put that $2,000 in his account. Not in his account. He put that $2,000 into the pocket of his trench coat, and then he forgot about it. Right? A pocket veto. You know the president has the power to veto, right? You know this. So he can veto a bill by Congress. They can override him with 2/3 majority vote, and it becomes a law anyway. But what about this pocket veto? It's a little dirty trick the president has. Yeah, a little dirty, underhanded trick the president can whip out and use from time to time. Yeah, politics is a dirty game. The president can actually, and I'll show you the definition here. It's when a president symbolically puts a bill into his pocket and forgets about it, like Daddy Al's money. When the president doesn't sign a bill for 10 days, the bill dies. It just dies. It's a pocket veto. He symbolically puts it into his pocket, forgets about it, the bill dies. It doesn't become a law. It's a dirty, underhanded trick sometimes the president has to combat the Congress overriding of a presidential veto. So he just kind of forgets about it, lets it get lost on his desk, symbolically puts it in his pocket and forgets. And then years later, ooh, look what I found. $2,000. That's a pocket veto, a trick by the president. So I think you guys can answer those, and you'll see that on the test. What's a pocket veto? It'll be on the test. I think, let's see, I think this does bring us to the end of Unit 4's notes. So here's what I'm going to do this time. You're going to use your notes. I told you to take good notes. Use your notes to answer the Unit 4 study guide. I'm not going to take your notes up this time, but we're going to do a study guide this time as an assignment. And then also that study guide assignment's in your Unit 3 folder. It'll be the Unit 4 folder. Yes, it's in there. Also in the Unit 4 folder is the Lesson 3 folder will be your Unit 4 test. And it's matching, true, false, some listing things in there. That all of the things we've learned about in this unit with the presidency, his powers that he wears, the hats that he wears, the qualifications, his salary, his benefits, the 15 executive departments, and some of those vocabulary words like pocket veto, all of that will be on the study guide and the test. So make sure you complete your study guide and make sure you complete the test in that folder. Pay attention to the due dates and make sure you turn them in and submit them before the due dates. And hopefully we'll be back in school before too long. Don't forget to study. Just keep reviewing some of those presidents in your mind if you want to. The test for that first president's quiz will be to be announced, to be determined yet. I want to wait until we all get back in school together. So until next time, Sophia, I know you just think that those mutton chop sideburns there of Martin Van Buren are so sexy. Sophia, try to control yourself. But until next time, I will see you soon, and Coach E's out.